What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 155 of the Stand Up Guys podcast. I'm your host, incomparable Zach Jones, joined as always by star of the porn parody 10-inch Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Splooge, where he played the villainous Cocksteady. It's the phenomenal A.J. Singh.
Hey, yo, hey, Cocksteady. Hey. I sound like Stallone, kind of.
That's true. They could have used Stallone as well.
Yeah, they could have.
Well, if you couldn't guess, this is going to be our review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Anybody, if you have never checked out our reviews, we like to do first just kind of a good spoiler-free thoughts and overview. And then what we'll do is a nice detailed breakdown of the plot scene by scene. Now, AJ, I'm curious, before we really get into this, what's, like, your history of fandom with the Ninja Turtles? I only ask because, like, the Ninja Turtles, like, when I was a kid, was, like, my first, like, fandom type thing. Like, I was obsessed with them. Like, I watched the cartoon series, like, repeatedly. I spent all my free money on the action figures. And then, like, eventually, like... I would say over the years became just more of kind of like a moderate fan. Like, I still like them, but I don't... not as in detail as when I was a kid, right. Of course. I will say, like, I have read a fair amount of, like, the IDW comic book series that I like a lot, but I was just curious, like, what your history is.
I'm very similar in that manner. I used to play the games that they used to have coming out. I used to play with the, dolls, like the toys,
right.
Action figures.
Action figures, not dolls.
Yeah, action figures. And Raphael's weapons, I used to play with those a lot.
Oh, yeah, the size.
Yeah, I didn't read the comics. I didn't really, I guess, know about them as much.
I didn't until recent years, but
the show, of course, I was into it big time. The movies I watched over and over again religiously.
Those two, yeah.
So, I was definitely all into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at some point in my life. Recently, of course, I still have, nostalgia and love for it. But, of course, it's not the same as it once was. But it was nice watching something that harkened back to that time. Yeah,
same. Man, you just reminded me. I forgot about the video games. I remember that first Ninja Turtles game for NES, just playing that underwater level a billion times because it's so difficult. And like you felt accomplishment just making it past that.
Yeah. I mean, games back then were just hard as hell.
So difficult.
Yeah.
At least the second one was more of like that like beat 'em up style that was a little bit easier, But man, that first game, I never saw the end of that first game. It was so difficult. So yeah, I went into this movie pretty optimistic because well, let me bring up Rotten Tomatoes here because the Rotten Tomatoes score is pretty high. Right now it sits at a 96%. Let's break down the cast real quick, too. A lot of voice actors here. Micah Abbey is Donatello. I'm going to mispronounce some of these names. Shamon Brown Jr. is Michelangelo. Hannibal Buress is Genghis Frog. Rose Byrne is Leatherhead. Nicolas Cantu is Leonardo. John Cena is Rocksteady. Jackie Chan is Master Splinter. Ice Cube is Superfly. Natasia Demetriou is Wingnut. Edebiri is April O'Neil. Giancarlo Esposito is Baxter Stockman. Post Malone is Ray Fillet. Brady Noon is Raphael. Seth Rogen is Bebop. Paul Rudd is Mondo Gecko. And Maya Rudolph is Cynthia Utrom. I was thinking, like, with these modern day animated features, they always get, like, really recognizable celebrities. Yeah. But I would think, like, for most of these roles, like, Seth Rogen has a distinctive voice. Yeah. But most of these other ones, if you didn't tell me that John Cena was playing Rocksteady going into this, I don't even know if I would have really picked out his voice. I think a lot of these people could be played by just, like, regular, voice actors, and it wouldn't really matter, and they could probably make the movie for cheaper.
Yeah, I think so too. I honestly thought they were regular voice actors at first until you told me that.
I mean, like, Paul Rudd is Mondo Gecko. Did you really pick out Paul Rudd's voice in there? No, not at all. So it's like, I don't know. I think they just kind of wasted some money there, which they do on a lot of these movies. But with that high tomato rating, I was optimistic, but I gotta say, after watching it, I felt a little underwhelmed. To me, the movie is just, I don't know. It's fine. I don't think it's great though. I didn't know. What do you think about it? Just surface level thoughts.
I didn't have high expectations because I heard bad things, going into it.
Oh, really?
There were some reviews that were like, this movie's this and that, like just, not great. And that kind of dampened my expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised.
You actually ended up liking it.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It's weird saying this about a Ninja Turtles movie because I know, like, obviously it is a property that kids should be able to enjoy.
Yeah.
But I would have liked it, I think, more if there was a little higher degree of seriousness to it. Mm. Which I know sounds weird to say, but even if you look at that original, like, live-action Ninja Turtles movie, like, it is, like, kid-friendly, but there's a twinge of darkness in that movie. Okay. Like, I remember the one turtle, like, gets messed up, and he's, like, recuperating in the bathtub and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And they're basically, like, making these, like, little, like, teenage kids, like, join the Foot Clan and stuff. Yeah. So there was a degree of darkness to it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like, even, like, if you read the IDW comic book series, like, again, it's totally, kids can read it, but I feel like adults can get more out of it. Whereas this movie, I don't know, I just felt like, yeah, if I was a kid, I would have loved this movie, but as an adult, I'm just kind of like, it doesn't grab me as much.
I don't know. I mean, like, the theme resonated with me, like, not fitting in, and like, I personally think humans aren't the best, and like
that is definitely a theme explored in this movie.
Yeah, and I think like animals would definitely feel that way if they had that level of like depth of consciousness and stuff. So like, I mean that resonated with me. I was totally okay with that, and if that's what you were gonna build, that's the tentpole you're gonna build this movie on, I'm okay with that.
Also, it's probably not fair to compare this movie to Spider-Verse. But since they both came out this year, and this movie definitely is kind of aping on the animation style, I would say it's not as intricate as Spider-Verse, but I think they're definitely aping on that style.
Yeah.
But I felt like Spider-Verse, maybe it's just a taste thing, but I thought it did a better job of appealing both to kids and adults, where this one to me just seemed a little more kid-friendly and maybe will turn off some adults more.
Yeah, I can see that.
So before we get into the details of the plot, how would you rate this just in terms of people should see it in theaters, wait for streaming, or skip?
I think younger people might want to see it in the theaters. If you're older, just chill, wait for it to come out on the, home streaming. But I think a lot of young people would like to go out and enjoy this movie in theaters.
That's a good point about the kids. I guess my official recommendation would be wait for streaming. But, yeah, I mean, if you have kids, they're probably going to have a great time at this movie and have fun with it. So it might be worth taking the kiddos out. But otherwise, I would say, like, if you're an adult curious about it, I would say wait for streaming for sure. All right, AJ, should we get into spoiler territory?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, spoilers ahead. We're going to get into this thing. Mm-hmm. So, AJ, just chime in whenever you want. This one, I got to say, when I was putting together my notes, I did have a hard time like remembering how things fit together exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised if I missed a few things. But so we open up on a TCRI SWAT team. And TCRI, I forget exactly what the acronym stands for, but this is like part of like the Ninja Turtles lore. Is this like scientific company that seems to get involved in a lot of like criminal stuff.
Were they mentioned in The Secret of the Ooze, like those older movies? Was it also TCRI? I remember something like that.
That's a good question. I haven't watched that movie since I was a kid, but it wouldn't surprise me because I think it was even a feature of like the original like comic. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, so we open up on like a TCRI SWAT team that's led by Cynthia Utrom. Now, AJ, do you know the significance of the name Utrom in the TMNT lore?
Utrom. No.
So the Utrom in Ninja Turtles are actually the name of an alien race, and chief among them is a Master Krang, the tentacle guy. So some people theorize that this woman, Cynthia Utrom, might actually be like Krang, like in disguise, like possibly like piloting her body or whatever.
Okay.
But I got to think there's some sort of connection since they gave her that last name, you know.
And what she plays? She said she was what?
So she's like the, I believe in this movie, she's like the head of TCRI. She's like that woman that's kind of like played by Maya Rudolph, and like doesn't play like a huge part in this movie, but
she's always like leading the charge.
Right.
Like, go get them, blah, blah.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're en route to Baxter Stockman's lab to obtain his mutation research that he's been working on. And I thought this was a bit convenient, and it comes into play towards the end of the...
Timing is perfect. Are you talking about that?
Well, not only the timing, you're right about that, not only the timing, but they also have these guns that apparently can, like, reverse mutation.
Oh, right.
Which I thought was a little bit of a convenient thing. Like, because he's, like, on the cusp with all this, like, mutant research, but they already have, like, the thing that can reverse it.
So, you're skipping a few steps here,
Right, so I thought that was a bit, like, maybe a little convenient, but whatever. It's a cartoon, I guess.
Yeah.
So Baxter is kind of in this continuity, like, kind of an outcast. He mentions, I think, that he feels like he has more of a connection to animals than humans, right?
I relate to that. I have like a pet dog. You have the pet dog now. Your family does. But I was always like, it used to live with me and everything.
Right.
It was like a family member, and I always felt like a strong connection to that dog. And now I have a cat who I don't have a strong connection. But I mean, still, they're really relatable animals, in that sense.
Which makes me wonder, as we find out, most of the mutants in this movie, like, a lot of them, anyway, seemingly hate humans.
Yeah.
But if a dog was mutated into, like, a human-animal hybrid...
they'd be our best friends.
You would hope so. But I think maybe because we tend to, like, treat them very well. I would think at least a lot of dogs, if they were transformed, would still be on humanity side.
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting thing for them to do.
I saw a TikTok where this... I'll say it, like, pretty much verbatim. The dog says, this guy feeds me, walks me, cleans up my poop. They must be God. And then a cat goes, this guy feeds me, walks me, cleans up my poop. I must be God.
That is actually very good.
Yeah.
Cats are that way, man.
Yeah, they really
are. So yeah, Baxter has been, he's connected animals, and he's been making these, human-animal mutations, hybrids. The most advanced one in his lab is a fly that he keeps in a cage. Now, I believe in, like, at least the original, like, cartoon we watched as kids, I believe he transforms himself into a fly.
Oh, is that right? I don't remember that at all.
It's been forever, but I think that's the case.
Okay.
So Baxter makes a vial of the green ooze, and that's exactly when the SWAT team shows up. So the fly is, like, apparently at this stage pretty strong, and so it takes out, like, a bunch of the members of the SWAT team. I don't remember exactly what happens, but maybe they shoot something, and it basically causes this big explosion, kind of blows up the lab, and it knocks down Baxter and causes the ooze to fall down into the sewer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when the title treatment comes up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. So now we cut straight to 15 years later, where we're introduced to the turtles running across rooftops at night. And we find out that the turtles are basically going on a supply run. So Leo reminds them that they have to stay hidden because Splinter believes that humans are evil and will kill them and milk them of their blood. Which that joke comes like throughout this movie several times.
Often,
the whole like milking, and they're like, "Oh, we don't even have nipples," and they use that joke a lot. But they even mention here that they're like, we'll do this because like Splinter says so, but we kind of think a lot of humans are cool or whatever, and
they're basing this off of like pop culture and stuff.
Right. And they're like name drop celebrities. I remember like one of them like mentioned like Guy Fieri or like Michelangelo. And a part of me like, and this is like happens throughout the movie a lot, is they have a lot of like current pop culture references, which makes me thinking about 20 years, like this movie is going to be very dated.
Yeah, that's true. And plus, one of these people is going to get caught up with something, and then it's going to look bad.
Probably.
Guy Fieri's a bunch of women in a restaurant or something. I'm not saying he did that, though.
He's actually probably the only decent guy out of all the ones they mentioned.
You hear all Lizzo fat-shaming people?
I did hear that. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's wild. Her whole image was built off of, like, being body positive.
Right, like being like, love my curves and all this stuff.
How's this irony for you?
Oh, Lizzo. I wonder if they mentioned her in this movie. Anyway, so we get this montage of them all like secretly like getting supplies and staying out of sight of people and cameras and everything. So on the way back home, they see a news report that mentions that there's this mysterious villain named Superfly who's been stealing a bunch of high-tech equipment. Superfly? But instead of going home like Leo wants to, because he's like the do-gooder, of course. He wants to follow Splinter's. All the other turtles are like, hey, they're showing an outdoor movie at this place, so let's go to this outdoor theater. So they all go, and so Leo kind of like, okay, I'll go along. And so they're showing Ferris Bueller, of all movies.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Ferris Bueller is probably something like Paramount has the rights to. So I don't know.
I mean, it does relate to the movie, but it just doesn't make sense that they'd be playing that movie. I mean, I know movies do go back and play like classics, but I don't know. On a random night, Ferris Bueller's playing that fits the theme of what they're going through.
Speaking of which, so they're looking down on all the humans, like enjoying themselves, and you can tell that they're bummed out that they can't.
And they're lonely,
right? They're lonely, and like I think Leo sees like a boyfriend girlfriend, and so like that sets up his character where he's like, I'd like to know what it's like to have a girlfriend, So they get all bummed out, and they kind of all sadly go home. Where Splinter has been, waiting for them in the dark. So Leo immediately confesses where they were, and they were seeing a movie, and they get in trouble. This causes... so Splinter starts telling the tale of, like, their origin story, but I'm like... Who is this for? Like, why would he tell them? This is just for us, the audience. But he's telling it to them who already know this. But anyway, he tells the tale of how he first met. He was just a regular rat on the streets, having hard times. And he ended up meeting the turtles in the sewer. They were covered in ooze. And when they touched him, he got covered in ooze. And, of course, they were mutated. And he mentions that, because he was an older rat, when he mutated, he was older, and they were baby turtles, so when they mutated, they were still, like, babies, Splinter tells of how the turtles were obsessed with the outside world.
Were you confused by Splinter at all? Like, I really thought, like, it was going to be a Jewish voice that came out of his mouth. Like, I don't know why, but he seemed like he had like stereotypical Jewish qualities to him, like cartoon wise.
It's actually funny you mention that, because I think Lester watched this movie with us as well. And I was talking to him, and I thought he mentioned that he thought he sounded Jewish.
Yeah.
I was like, no, it's Jackie Chan.
Yeah, I thought at first he sounded Jewish too. I was like, man, they're really going in on this whole Jewish thing with this rat. And then, like, the more I listened to him, I was like, oh wait, no, he's got an Asian accent in there. But I don't know, I really saw like Jewish qualities.
Although, you know, in the Michael Bay produced live action movies, Splinter was voiced by Tony Shalhoub, who I think might be legit Jewish, or if not, he at least
like
sounds
Middle Eastern or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like
Semitic.
yeah, he definitely has that voice, you know, that sounds vaguely Jewish if he's not legit Jewish. So, yeah, it is kind of weird, but just the way he acts too, I could see you definitely picking up on that. So Splinter tells of how when they were kids, the turtles were obsessed with the outside world, and so he kind of broke down one night and he's like, okay, I'll take these kids outside. And basically, they were immediately like attacked by people. Yeah. And so that's how Splinter got it in his head that like humanities are bloodthirsty. They just want to kill us. I mean,
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
He has one really bad experience outside, and he's like, never again.
Although I kind of think like, you could argue like this maybe was in a time of no cell phones, like that part in the past. But like you had a fair amount of people that legitimately saw like a rat man with like anthropomorphic looking turtle babies with him. And like that that should be like in their universe, like, I don't know. I guess it would be maybe a conspiracy theory, but it would have some weight to it because there would be so many people that witnessed it.
That reminds me of that Leprechaun in the Hood story, like where like
I definitely never watched that.
No, not the movie. Like there's an actual news story about like people being like, "There's a leprechaun out here," blah blah, and the news is like covering it. Like they say they saw a leprechaun.
Sounds legit.
We're the news.
So this caused Splinter to, he's like, okay, the world's dangerous, so I'm going to teach myself and the kids to defend ourselves. So they actually end up watching like these old, like terrible, like ninja movies and teaching themselves. He teaches himself and the turtles how to defend themselves, and you get this whole montage of the martial arts and everything. Anyway, when he's all done telling the story, he grounds the turtles for a month. So now we cut to a gang of thieves pulling a heist. They're getting another high-tech item for Superfly. The police almost catch these guys when Superfly, who we don't get a good view of in this scene, basically picks up their van and flies it away from the police. He brings it to his hideout that's like a huge wrecked ship on the coastline. Yeah. And I think
physics are not explained. Like, he can carry his own body with those wings. Sure, I'll accept that. But a car full of people also?
Yeah, like a huge van full of people and equipment. Yeah. Yeah, they make him very strong.
He's jacked.
And it seems like, I believe he kills these guys, doesn't he?
Yeah, he kills anybody who sees him.
Yeah. So now we get the scene from the trailer where the turtles are like slicing fruit, watermelon, and videotaping it. And I guess like they must have just like fast forwarded a month because it's like, because
they got over there.
They're grounding. So we get that scene from the trailer where Mikey puts the watermelon above his head and Ralph is gonna throw a star through it, which he does. But then they hear a girl's voice. It turns out that star fell down and it's stuck in the helmet of April O'Neil. So this is where we're introduced to her. So like as April like starts yelling at them, like Leo like instantly falls in love with her.
Yeah.
And as they're talking, a man steals her scooter. So the turtles, led by Leo, decide to go after him and get the scooter back. So they follow this guy to a chop shop. Leo wants to go in there stealthily, But Raphael, he just
gung-ho,
barges in. Yeah, good old Raphael and his anger management issues. So they end up getting in a big fight, featuring a quick cameo of the Go Ninja song.
I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah, one of them ends up fighting a guy inside a car that turns on, and the radio turns on, and that song plays just really quick. But it is in there. So the turtles beat the bad guys. I mean, that fight, there was nothing spectacular about it.
But it was their first fight. Right. They were just so good at it.
Well, even before they fought, I think Donatello mentioned they had never really fought before or whatever, and they do that thing where he does get the knife in his leg or whatever, and he screams from the trailer as well. So, but yeah, pretty soon they're just masters, and
they're unbeatable.
Yeah. So that didn't last long, and they became great ninjas. So yeah, they beat up the bad guys. So April shows up to get her scooter back. The turtles, at first they try to hide, it doesn't really work. So they decide to reveal themselves to April. She's freaked out for a second when she realizes that the legit turtles rather than people in costumes.
Yeah.
But then she agrees to hear their story over pizza. So they go up on the roof of this place called the Laird, which is a tribute to Peter Laird, one of the creators of the Ninja Turtles. April reveals that
there's a strip club over here called the Lair in Portland.
Oh, really?
Also, what kind of creatures do they have dancing in there where it's called the Lair?
That's true. If you think about it, lair never has a good connotation. Let's go to the lair.
Let's see what's in there. In the lair.
Man, I am. Me and Lester were talking about this randomly because, when I was working for H&R Block, occasionally they would farm me out to other offices that weren't my normal ones when they were maybe down a person or whatever. Yeah. And one of them is in Gresham, which is kind of
the hood of Portland.
Yeah, it is really. And I just remember driving past this strip club that looked terrible. It looked kind of like a dive bar, but it was a strip club. And I'm I don't even want to imagine the kind of lineup that they got going on in there. It had to have been terrible.
I think Portland has the most strip clubs per capita than any other city in the U.S.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Lester says a lot of time, and I've seen one of these. You'll just see a house.
Yeah, it looks like a house.
Yeah, it has a sign of exotic dancing inside or whatever. And I'm good Lord, I do not want to see the caliber of woman.
Shady as hell.
Yeah. So yeah, April reveals that she's a reporter for her school newspaper. And she's taking the old school notes on a notepad, old school reporter style. So at one point, the turtles ask her if humanity will accept them like she has, and she basically says no, absolutely not. Yeah. I was freaked out by you guys. The only reason I'm okay with you is because you helped me out, and I know you're okay. So that kind of puts in their head this idea of maybe if they show the people that they want to help, that humanity will accept them.
Right.
She ends up getting texted by her parents at the same time the turtles get texted by Splinter, so they go home. And I believe on the way home, this is where
we just watched Secret Invasion. That was also the Skrulls' motivation. If we help, then or at least one of the Skrulls tell us.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it also had the whole theme of humanity sucks.
Yeah.
And they won't accept the Skrulls,
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar. That's true. I think we talked about this when we were talking about Secret Invasion, how so many modern day stories, that's one of the plot things is humanity sucks, and and I get to there's a truth to that, but still it's used a lot. So on their way home, the turtles put together a plan to stop Superfly, so humanity will accept them. And Leo figures they can use April to give them leads. I might have missed a scene or two in here. I don't know if there's something like between them going home and like picking this back up, but at some point they meet up with April again. She takes the turtles to her high school, Eastman High, which then is a reference to Kevin Eastman, the other creator of Ninja Turtles. And I remember, so Donatello gets excited. They're kind of all excited just to see what, like, a human school looks like. Mm-hmm. Donatello gets excited because he sees an Attack on Titan reference, like, etched onto a locker. Mikey signs up for an improv comedy class under the name Michael Angelo, And they make a whole joke about this. Is like, oh, Leo, you could be Leonardo. Yeah. Doesn't really work for Raphael, though. It'd be like Raphael. Yeah. Doesn't really work. And then they notice this locker that has the name Puke Girl scrawled on it. And it ends up that's actually April's locker because at one point, like, she was doing the morning announcements. And she got all nervous and just, like, puked all over the place, which was a funny little bit, I thought. Mm. Now, I must have missed it here. There's a scene towards the end of the movie where, like, she mentions that the prom was uncanceled. Did they say here why the prom was canceled?
Oh, I don't remember that.
It must have been in there somewhere, but I didn't remember it. Okay, so April tells the Turtles that there was 4 different gangs that have done jobs for Superfly. I'm not sure how she knows this.
Yeah.
But these are their leads to, hopefully track down Superfly. So we get this montage of basically them taking out these 4 different gangs and interrogating their leaders. We also see Splinter getting suspicious of them going out at night all the time. Like, he knows they're up to something. So basically almost all the gangs, like their leaders, like won't give up any information. But eventually the Turtles are led to this man named Byrne, and the Turtles decide to, they get him to talk, basically. So I might have missed something here, but I believe basically that Byrne is also doing a job for Superfly, and they're basically going to take the item they stole and deliver to Superfly.
Yeah, Superfly, he keeps getting people to deliver items to him and then killing them. And then he got this guy to deliver an item to him so he can kill him.
The weird thing is, though, is like, you would think all these gangs most likely have members that were killed by Superfly. So you would almost think they'd be like, yeah, we'll give up Superfly, go kill him. He just killed like a bunch of our guys.
Like, he's going to keep killing you.
Right.
If you keep doing the things he wants you to do anyway.
Yeah, so I didn't know if that totally made sense. Also, like, when they're fighting all these guys, like, April, like, videotapes, like, some of it, like, it never really comes back. No. I mean, she could possibly help their case. So look, they were fighting for.
Well, maybe like later on when she's like explaining the scenario to like the people.
Oh, like the news agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't actually see that, but maybe we could infer that maybe that happened. Okay, so at some point, I didn't know exactly where this scene came in, but at some point, Cynthia Utrom, she's basically, her people tell them, well, she's aware that Superfly has been stealing all this TCRI equipment, so she's like, okay, go ahead and put a tracker, like, on all of our equipment and all of our vehicles so that we can track him down. So before the Turtles can complete their plan, they get a text from Splinter that says, like, there's an emergency. Yeah. So they all run back home, and since April's with them, they take her with. But they leave her, like, outside the door because they're like, Splinter doesn't like humans, so just stay here. And she makes this joke about seeing a cockroach surfing on a turd, which I thought was kind of funny. So Splinter reveals that the emergency text was a ruse just to get them there, so he could throw them a surprise pizza party. And he had, like, cutouts of, like, the celebrity Chris's, like
yeah.
Chris Pratt, Chris Pine, and Chris Evans,
Yeah.
I guess this scene was just to show that, like, Splinter was, like, sad that they kept going out and was, like, trying to get back in their good graces, I guess.
He was trying to be a good parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, they thank Splinter, but go back outside to complete the mission. So the Turtles drive the van with the stolen equipment and wait for Superfly to show up. But they're surprised to find out that Superfly is indeed a mutant himself.
Shocker.
Right. And then we are also introduced to all the other mutants, featuring Bebop, Rocksteady, Mondo Gecko, Genghis Frog, Ray Fillet, Leatherhead, Wingnut, and weird cockroach lady who I don't even know if she got a name. She's the one that, like, just, like, spews, like, slime all over. She doesn't really speak.
Yeah.
So Superfly instantly puts it together that the Turtles were created 15 years ago. It must have came from that explosion from Baxter's lab. And he tells a tale of how he took care of his brothers and sisters, and basically how humans also mistreated them. And so, just like Splinter, he hates humanity. He says the machine he's making will wipe out humanity for good. So the Turtles are like, well, we'd like to know more about that. So he's like, okay, I'll talk to you about it, but we got to go somewhere more fun. So he basically takes him to this, like, bowling alley / arcade.
Mm-hmm.
So Superfly says his machine will turn all animals into mutants, and then they can easily either kill the humans or, like, he mentioned, maybe use them for entertainment.
Yeah.
And one of them is like, we should just keep them as pets,
I thought that was funny.
Right. So Superfly, they leave there, and Superfly mentions that he can turn on his machine tonight once he adds the equipment that the Turtles have. And I should mention, like, during this whole thing, like, April O'Neil's, like, in their ear telling him, like, this is bad. Don't go along with this.
Yeah. She would say that.
She would.
Typical human.
The Turtles tell Superfly that they will follow him in their van. And, you get the sense that their plan is, like, to pretend that, but really, like, drive the other way. But they also, before that, like, they talked to Superfly, and they're like, just hypothetically, what if we didn't like your plan?
Yeah.
And he's basically like, well, then I would have to, like, kill you or whatever. So they're like, oh, no, we like your plan. But, now he definitely, like, doesn't trust them.
Right.
So he says, Mondo, Wingnut, and Rocksteady will ride with you because I drive fast and they know where to go. And they asked Mondo where they're going, and Mondo is like, like, we're going to some pier in some Staten Island or something. One of the, like, New York boroughs or whatever. I should also say, like when they met the other mutants, like, Mondo and Mikey, like, really took to each other. They're like, oh, you have good vibes or whatever. You know what I thought was weird is Mikey has, like, braces, I believe, on his teeth.
Does he?
I think so. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm pretty sure I saw him with braces, and I was just like, how did he get those?
Yeah. Also, they had a cell phone. I was like, how do you get a plan going? Like, how'd they set that up?
I mean, Donatello's a genius. He probably figured something out. I guess they could have just, like, got, like, burner style phones and then, like, stole, like, activation cards or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so while they're in the back of the van, like, they're trying to figure out a way to stop the van. I wrote, the other mutants are rocking out to that song "What's Going On" by Four Non Blondes.
Oh, right. Up until that point, the soundtrack was solid.
Well, I was gonna say, like they do a ton of needle drops in this movie. Almost all of them except that song though are like hip hop songs, and so like if you're like being not into hip hop, like it's not going to do anything for you. But if you're into hip hop, this movie has a lot of needle drops.
Great soundtrack for people who like hip hop.
So Donatello ends up hitting the brake with his stick. This sends the other mutants out of the windshield and gives the turtles control of the van. Superfly, though, in his rear view notices the wreck, and so he begins to chase the turtles. We see that there is at one point it shows like the piece of equipment and like a blinking light on it. So I believe that's the tracker that the Utrom lady put on it.
Yeah.
So Superfly eventually grabs the equipment, and the other turtles try to hold on to it,
Right.
making like a chain. But eventually they wreck into a road sign, and Superfly gets away. And then immediately Utrom's men show up and capture the turtles. One thing I'm wondering about is Utrom mentions putting the tracker on the stuff to eventually get Superfly. But once we find out Superfly's plan and everything, it seems like Utrom and Superfly almost want to do the same thing.
Yeah, it does.
Anyways, the turtles wake up. They are in restraints, and Utrom is there, and she is shocking them with a shocker.
The old shocker.
The old shocker. And she says she will, basically milk the ooze out of him, which sounds dirty.
I think they did that whole 3 times joke, they did the whole milk them 3 times.
Yeah. They even at one point coming up, do a close up on this machine, and it's called the Milker 2000 or something. I don't remember exactly, but they really hammer that joke.
Yeah, so they're milking them, and it looks like their blood is straight ooze.
That's true. It's green. It's not red, so it's that's why I wrote milk the ooze out of them rather than their blood, because it just seems it's all green, and so I guess it turned their blood green like the ooze.
I guess so.
Leo tells the others that maybe he shouldn't have trusted April, and seemed like she might have left him for dead. But then immediately we get a scene where April shows up at Splinter's home and tells him what happened. So now Splinter shows up at the facility and basically, wrecks shop, beats all these guys, and frees the turtles.
So it's amazing how guns are so unimportant in this universe. Nobody ever uses them, and if they do use them, they use them for a foot away.
I know. I think the first batch of guys he beat maybe just had shock sticks or something. But eventually, there was a bunch of guys with the mutated guns, and I'm like, not one of these guys could shoot him from a distance. Just turn him into a regular rat and be done with it. Let's see. Where was I? Okay. So now they send April home, and they go after Superfly. April, I believe this is close to her apartment. She notices the motorcycle of one of those Utrom soldier guys. Splinter and the turtles show up at Superfly's lair, but he and the others were ready and waiting for them. The turtles convinced... This, I thought... I was fine with it, but it seemed like it almost happened too quickly, where basically the turtles just convinced the other mutants that you don't really want to go through with Superfly's plan.
Yeah.
And they're basically yeah, you're right, and immediately turn against him. And I could see maybe a few of them, Mondo Gecko, but I would think at least Bebop and Rocksteady would maybe be no, we are into his plan.
Yeah.
Maybe have a few that are no, so you get kind of half and half fighting rather than just them all ganging up on Superfly.
Right.
But no, they're all yeah, you're right, we don't like his plan. So they all gang up on Superfly.
Yeah, and it's also Superfly raised them from childhood.
Yeah, so you would think they would have some allegiance towards him, at least some of them.
Yeah.
So Superfly does turn on the machine, and it's like powering up. But basically, since they're all teamed up, they end up all knocking him and the machine into the ocean. But this causes Superfly to merge with a whale and a bunch of other sea creatures, and he basically just comes out like this giant, mutant. And also, like, there happens conveniently to be a zoo there where he lands. Mm-hmm. So now he also merges with a bunch of zoo animals, especially like a bunch of horses, which become his leg.
Like, how many horses were at the zoo?
Quite a few, yeah. That's another thing. Is like at a zoo, like how many horses exactly?
Right.
Like this is a horse-heavy zoo.
People want more horse.
We don't want to see like rhinos and monkeys. Give us horses. Yeah. We don't see those a lot. But yeah, basically he just becomes this huge like mutant kaiju, basically. So Splinter gives this like speech that inspires the turtles and the mutants to cross the ocean and fight Superfly. They contact April, who ends up stealing that motorcycle she saw earlier, and she goes to help the turtles. I'm probably missing some stuff in this fight, but basically, to start out with, the turtles, they get one of those guns, and they shoot Superfly with one of them, thinking that it'll stop him, but basically it just hits like one of those horses on his leg and like mutates that back into a regular horse. Yeah. And so then they realize, this is going to be harder than we thought. So Superfly throws a bunch of cars at him. They eventually get in a bus, and he like kicks the bus over and like kind of messes them up. Should
have killed him with that though.
Really,
like, when he kicked that bus, I was like, no way.
Well, they got those hard turtle shells. They got that built-in protection. So April notices that the news is telling people that the turtles are the bad guys, and basically they're all in league with Superfly. Then Leo ends up giving the turtles like an inspiring leader type speech to get them back into the fight. Donatello comes up with a plan to throw I don't even know what you call it, but whatever element, the blue element that's in the Utron weapons, he's like, if we take that and throw it in like the convenient blowhole on the back of Superfly's neck, it'll basically get into his bloodstream and destroy him. So now we get a scene where April interrupts the news broadcast to tell the people that the turtles and the other mutants are indeed the good guys, and they're trying to stop Superfly. And she does throw up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Bring that joke back. So the turtles toss the blue element back and forth, trying to get it to Superfly's blowhole. Eventually, Splinter gets the element, but Superfly like knocks him like several blocks down the road. So a human approaches Splinter, and to Splinter's surprise, offers him a hand up. He's still kind of afraid of humans, but he's like, "Oh, this guy seems all right." And then Splinter also notices that the news is reporting that like the turtles and the other mutants are good guys. So he's like, "Oh, maybe I was wrong about humanity." Splinter says he needs to deliver the blue element to the turtles, but the human's like, "No, I got it. I'll do it for you." And so the element ends up getting passed between various humans and mutants, including Mondo Gecko. It finally makes its way to the turtles, and they do end up throwing it in Superfly's blowhole, basically causing him to blow up. And we eventually find out reverting back into just like a regular fly. Now tell me if I'm missing any stuff here in the wrap-up, but I remember we get a scene where Splinter is making out all disgustingly with like the cockroach lady. And then he offers the mutants to basically go live with him and the turtles in the sewer. So we get a scene of the mutants kind of getting settled in the sewers. And the turtles are getting dressed for their first day of school. Oh, and so we get this scene where, like, Splinter's saying goodbye to Mikey as he climbs up, and, like, we see his bandana, like, he leaves the bandana at home. So like they're going to school just as like regular kids without the bandanas, you know. So yeah, they show up at school, and they go to school, and the turtles, like, they're unsure of what will happen, but they're basically they're warmly greeted by both April and the other kids. They think they're cool. And then we end the movie on April's locker that now, I forget exactly what it says. I think instead of Puke Girl, it says like hero or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it said.
I forget exactly what it said, but basically now the kids are on her side, and she's like, they look up to her. All you do is
save the world.
Right. So cut to credits, and we go through the credits, and there is a pretty lengthy, actually, mid-credit stinger. So we basically see the turtles enjoying school. Raphael joins the wrestling team. Mikey joins that improv comedy team, which... I mean, I had a high school in a small town. I don't think they had a ton of extracurriculars, but like we certainly did not have an improv comedy club. And I'm wondering, like, how many high schools have improv comedy? Like,
I don't remember seeing that either.
Leo ends up asking April to the prom, and then as they're all enjoying prom, it's revealed that they are being monitored by Cynthia Utrom. Who has Superfly caged in just like his regular fly form. And she asks her lieutenant to contact Shredder, and we get a quick glimpse of Shredder.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 to be continued in the inevitable sequel.
Which we'll watch.
No, we didn't stay to the very end, so if there's an end credit sequence, we don't know about it. I mean, I guess it's better that they at least like didn't use Shredder in this movie. At least have the patience to wait for the second movie. I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm just interested in what Shredder's role is. Like, is he just some underling for this lady, or is he like his own character? Like, because Shredder's always had his own agency, you know.
Oh, I think they'll definitely make him like, you know, powerful and like the leader of his own domain and everything, but she's just like using his services. But you got to think like eventually there's going to be a reveal that she is either Kang or has a connection to Kang.
Yeah, I would think so.
I'm definitely not on the edge of my seat as much as like wanting to see the next Spider-Verse movie.
Right. No. I mean, Spider-Verse, I definitely think is like top tier animated film. Like that's as good as it gets for me. But this was good. I didn't think it was like, I didn't even think it was mediocre. I thought it was, you know, the story was pretty sound. You know, like it was fun. It was silly. The cartoon, the animation style brought out positive feelings for me because of Spider-Verse and how that sits in my mind. So, all in all, I thought it was a good experience.
I'm curious, would you like to see like another go at a live-action Ninja Turtles?
I actually prefer this one more.
Did you?
Yeah. I think you can get away with more. You can, it's you know, there's something about live action where like, there's that uncanny valley where, you know, the suits and stuff, like sometimes they don't look right or the movements don't look right or something about that. Just, you know, but in a cartoon you can get away with all that and it's just easier to believe.
You know, I only watched like the first one of those Michael Bay produced ones. Mm-hmm. And like, I didn't think like they made the turtles look ugly in those movies, but I didn't mind it. Like they definitely, you know, had a distinct look. But I didn't think like the CGI was bad or anything. I just thought the movie, like story wise, was bad, and
right.
It was like most, you know, anything Michael Bay touches. It was more style over substance.
Was Megan Fox in that too?
Yes.
Surprised she worked with him after Transformers.
Yeah, I don't really know what's up with their relationship because it seems like they like, you know, wrote her out of the Transformers movies because like she said a bunch of like stuff about him or something, but apparently they must have made up.
I guess so. I don't know what making up with Michael Bay would do for you now, though. I don't think he's getting a lot of movies anymore.
Oh no, he still works.
Really?
He made that. I didn't watch it, but like There was a movie called Ambulance with like Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, okay.
It was like and I think it's supposed to be pretty bad too. No, you know what the thing is? Like, his movies actually tend to make a lot of money.
Well, yeah, they're always like supposed to be blockbuster type movies, like Transformers. These are huge names.
The thing is, like, some people really just like that sort of action. Like, some people are okay with style over substance.
Yeah.
I haven't watched, many Michael Bay movies. Like, I think that Ninja Turtles one was, well, and he didn't direct that actually, so that's not even fair. But like, I don't even know what the last like Michael Bay directed movie I would have watched. It's been forever because I was just like, this guy just doesn't make stuff that I'm interested in.
Yeah. Did you hear any meows in the Ninja Turtle movies? Meow, meow.
Does he do that a lot in his movies?
In his movies, like whenever they start out, like meow, meow.
No, I don't remember hearing any of those. Man, speaking of noise, maybe I'm becoming an old man, but I thought when I was watching this, I was like, God, this is really loud. I almost wish they'd turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I've had that, especially even at home, like where the commercials on certain shows are like really loud.
Oh,
the
yeah.
show is soft as hell.
I haven't watched like regular TV in a while, but that is something they were doing. Where, like, we really want these people to hear the commercials.
Yeah.
Like, I actually even think they might have like proposed legislation at one time to make it so they couldn't do that, because like it was a thing where like they were purposely like making the commercials much louder than the volume of whatever program.
For sure. Yeah.
It's like people who they're like, some of these people are just watching Law and Order in the background, so when the commercial comes on, you make sure they hear that. We're paying you money. I think there is definitely something to that. So AJ, I guess we're to it. The scoring round. What would you give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem on a scale of 1 to 10?
I liked it. It was good. I'll give it a 6.2. Not quite a 6.5, but 6.2.
See, I almost thought the way you were talking, you were going to go even higher. But yeah, I'm going to give this thing a 6. I think it's fine, but like, I was underwhelmed, and like, I don't know if I'll ever revisit it. If I do, it'll be many, many, many moons from now.
Yeah.
It'll be long enough to where it does feel dated because of all the pop culture references.
Yeah. I mean, I would watch it again too, but it'd be a while.
Like you mentioned, like when the second one comes out, I probably will watch it, but I'm not like champing at the bit to watch it,
I am kind of more excited about the idea of Shredder being in it. He's like the bad guy, so I think he would only improve the story. But it just depends on how they write it, I guess.
Did you like that they actually use like teenage kids as the voices of the turtles?
Yeah, I like that. That was fun.
I think it works well for this cartoon. Although I always kind of thought it'd be cool if they did like, an adult, like they actually graduate from teenage to adult Mutant Ninja Turtles, and what that might be like.
Well, I mean, that's what kind of like the first live action ones were. Like they were kind of like adultish, right? Like Secret of the Ooze, they were pretty old.
I mean, it's true. It was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but like they could have been adult.
There's no way Raphael was a teenager in that movie. He was too grumpy old man to be a teenager.
Man, I watched those movies as a kid so many times. Like, I must have drove my parents crazy. Between that and the Super Mario Brothers that I watched, movie that I watched incessantly, man, I don't know how they survived me as a kid.
Like, I just know, like, the New York City pizza really it was embedded, like, that was the best pizza. Like, I had never tasted it, nothing, but, like, they made the pizza look so good, and they made it such a big deal in those movies.
Well, people from New York will still insufferably tell you that it's still the best. It might be, but...
Never had a New York pizza.
No.
I gotta try one.
Well, you have to actually go to New York.
Yeah, that's the only downside.
Although it does sound better than like that, like Chicago, like deep dish.
I've had that. That's actually pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah, it's.
Oh yeah, I forgot you actually went to Chicago, didn't you?
Yeah. Chicago's not. I mean, their pizzas are pretty good. I haven't been to Detroit, but like I was born there, but I haven't been there lately, and Their style of pizza is pretty good too. Detroit style pizza.
Oh, what are they doing there?
It's kind of like a thicker crust. Has like oil and pepperoni, and it's just I don't know. It's really good. It's like it's almost like a deep dish, but it's not quite. It's better.
Well, I'm definitely not taking a trip to Detroit.
Yeah,
that sounds rough.
You'll come back a man
in a body bag. Well, AJ, any final thoughts or anything you wanted to address about the movie before we wrap things up?
I mean, I thought it was good. You know, I thought like the kids would like it, and it does the deal. You know.
Yeah, overall thoughts. I think it's a very kid-friendly movie, but adults, you might like it, but it might be less appealing than something like Spider-Verse.
Right. Yeah.
But what did you guys think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Please comment below. Let us know. If you will, subscribe both to the YouTube channel and to the podcast in audio form on your podcast service of choice. Leave us those thumbs up, good reviews, all that good stuff. So far, I am still on Twitter or X if you'd rather. X going to give it to you.
Give it to you.
That's at Zach Jones Live, ZachJonesLive. But that is going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.